Or to the cloud. There you
Yeah,
go.
you got it. It's going.
We're good. All right, so let me put up the. Everybody see the tax and budget worksheet?
Yep.
All right, so Joe, feel free to jump in, but I can give the synopsis of it here. Basically what he did is did the financial forecast like he did last year. And this is, again, making certain assumptions. So for expenditures, he made assumptions for education in town based on what we've done historically, which is around 3% for both. Debt service is the actual debt service for what we're living in now, which is fiscal year 2021, and then projecting that out based on what's coming off and what's going on. Included in debt service is anticipated bonding questions for things like items on the Fryer report. This is also for our road bonds that we do every other year. So all of that is included according to our capital plan. There's a line item for a $110 million bond issue. That is the high school. And the way Joe has broken that out over the different years is through 4 separate bonds of different amounts. And that's based on how we need cash flow. That's based on our schedule that our architects provided to us. And that's how it's broken out. So all of the high school impact and the bonds are on that one line there. Capital improvements is based on a 3% increase in each fiscal year. We have a policy of 2.5%, but this is a little bit above that. And then grand list growth is based on historical data and averages. So he forecasted all of those out. Same with revenues as well. So if we scroll down, Joe, did I miss anything?
I think you got it.
Okay, thank you. If we scroll down to the tax and mill rate, he shows what the overall tax increase, the percent change on the budget is, but we are also able to take out exactly what the impact of the high school project is on the taxes. So that is in the yellow line down here that says increase due to high school project. So the first year that it would come on for the 7646 is in fiscal year 22-23. And that is to the average residential assessment of 226,777. So that is an annual increase based on just the high school project of 7646. The following year, the impact is 188.76. This is also a reval year. So the tax increase is a little bit more here. And again, all of these are forecasts, so things may change. Then the next year, fiscal year 24-25, we have a $98.46. The following year, $94. The following year, $8. And then the next year, there's no impact on the taxes from the school project. So these look to be pretty good numbers cumulatively over about 6 years. It's about 465, I believe, a little under $500 of an impact on the average residential assessment.
In total.
In total.
Yeah, and Kat, could you go back, and Joe, I'm sorry, this is Kathy Blonsky. One of the things I think we have to be clear about here is that in 22-23, now if you go down, keep on going down, 22, that is, you see that the overall tax is 2.2%, and the high school is $76. Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, really the taxes, because the debt's coming off, that's why that number is so low, right?
Right. If you look above, you see, if you look at the debt service up above and you compare the previous year to that year, you see that even though we're adding 1.2 million in debt, we're actually dropping off $1.2 million in debt.
Right. So I think that's a good communication tool there. That's like that we've dropped off so much debt that the first year of the impact of the project, if you can again, Kat, roll it down, is $76, but you're still looking at a tax increase with our projections at 2.20%, which is extremely, low. So, and then the next year you go into the reval. So I think that there's some talking points around that, some communications, because those I think are really positive things, that, so much debt has gone on, and then we're slotting in the debt. And really the first true real impact isn't until this last year. And then, I mean, this year too. It's hard to do it, and I can't see the years.
Yeah.
I know it's like back
23, 24.
24. And then I think, like Kat said, I think what's also very important is that, if you go down, keep on going down, Kat, is that it's really only about, I think, 6 years, and then there's no impact at all. And then even this year here is $8.50. And so you're talking a total of, 6 or 7 years, $450. I mean, to me, those are really good talking points to communicate that out. I mean, these numbers, and this is what we're seeing, is a completely different financial picture than what it used to look like 3 years ago. So that's my
and
input on that.
Also a point, Kathy, too, that we heard last time is that we're also considering other things going on in town, like the Fryer Report projects at all the elementary schools, and all of the capital expenditures that we have. So this is more of it's a nice comprehensive look at what's going on and adding on a high school project.
Yeah, Kat, that's a great point, because we're still hearing that as recently as the last building committee meeting, right? With some commentary about that. Don't forget about all the other things.
Mhm.
This is going to take away from all the other things the town needs. And I think to message that that's not the case. We're being responsible and still making good on the facilities needs and all the other capital needs in the town.
This is Ira. So what you're saying is that actually the tax implication for the bond, for the $110 million bond or a $100 million bond, is it'll decrease after 6 years too. Won't show up as terms with that. But that doesn't mean taxes won't increase in town, that there's still budget increases every year, as every town does. When I've done some of these projects, we did one in Glassroy, we took 10 years and looking at the rate of inflation. And it barely increased, like 0.01 increase in actual dollars. I suggest you take a 10-year viewpoint of saying how much of your increase your overall taxes are going to be, because I think there's two discussions here. One is how minimally it's going to affect the overall increase of the taxes, but there will be an increase just based on inflation, even if you don't increase anything at all. So I'm always finding people are going to look at their overall. I always put myself in a seat of when you're a resident there, and they look and they know what their property tax is. It also anticipates going to go up. So the issue is how it's going to have minimum impact on the bond of the building, but there still be taxes increase. They're going to want to know that overall amount. It's good to break it down and saying, hey, this is really our debt service is retiring. This is all that's going on. And so actually minimal, but there will be an increase. So I would suggest that you take those numbers and take it out over a bunch of years and show that your other costs that you're increasing, unless I'm wrong here, Kat, that, most of the towns basically just keep up the rate cost of inflation. I think people don't understand that. They don't take into account their tax increases have a lot to do with inflation.
Now, Ira, I would ask you a question about how would we best communicate what these numbers look like when we're talking about the school project? Like in past projects, would it be that $465 over 6 years to the average assessment? Is that our message and how we communicate?
No, that's a great message. There's nothing wrong with using that message, showing that how it's a minimal increase to the overall taxes that go up every year. The issue is what's the percentage you're anticipating of taxes going up? Because people are going to look at that number of their property tax. Once you start slicing and dicing, I'm seeing many of these spreadsheets, and I know you guys want your dollars and cents there. That's what people want to know. I mean, I'm looking at the questions coming back, and the number one thing, how much of my taxes are going to go up? They're not going to look and say, well, the bond debt ratio is really great. It's 460. And I think those are all great arguments. But to them, it's all about the overall increase of property taxes. that.
But what
most
number are you looking at then? So let's go to the beginning of it. So what
Yeah,
number,
I mean, I can't
what
see the
number
whole
do you
thing.
want us to show?
I think you have to show two things. How it shows that a minimal increase, your overall increase you're estimating over these years for the tax increase, and how little the high school bonding is affecting those overall tax increases.
Okay, so if you take year 2, the first year of the project, you know, we're projecting a 2.2% tax increase,
Right.
and that's $76. But the next year we're projecting 4.47, but because it's a reval year, it's projected at 6.24%.
Right.
Then the next year out after that is a 3.77 and $98. So again, those are the numbers. Which ones do you want? Which ones what would you want to show? They're all, you know, these are the, you know, this is probably at this year, the 3.77, that's the maximum except for the reval year. That's what the most impact is going to be, which again, to me is a very doable number. I mean, but it's still 3.77, where Farmington historically keeps their taxes under the 3 or below.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Yeah, I think it's the one right debt to budget. The average residential assessment, that's what you want to do. And saying just what the average assessment of a home that's worth, what, $350,000? I'm taking,
230.
okay, I'm sorry, $430,000. And so that's your assessment there. Then these are the taxes, and that's the dollar increase. And those 4 lines are the most important thing to present to the community, because they can then look at that and say, all right, 70% of my value of my home, and they can figure that out. That's the thing that all the years have done, is sells these projects. And to me, I look at these numbers, I've never seen such low numbers for adding $110 million bond to it. You got an easier selling point here. Also recognizing even if it went up $5 a year, you're still going to get people griping about it. But it just seems more than reasonable. So that's how people digest these big budgets. They don't read these spreadsheets at all. I mean, yeah, you'll get some people who go in the weeds, but I guarantee you 95% of the people, they're going to look at saying, okay, what's the valuation of my home I'm being taxed at? Yeah, this is not a lot of money. I expect it to go up. There's inflation. If you explain it to people in a way they can understand and digest it for what they're paying, they'll buy it for the most part. But
what year are we showing?
I think you just start out with let's assume the referendum gets passed. So you're going to do 21, 22, 22, 23. You're going to go out to 6 years.
So you actually believe that you should show each one of these?
Yeah, I believe you're giving them a forecast and saying, what's this going to cost us over the time of this bond? And how it's showing that, of course, your debt service is being retired, that it's affecting it minimally on their total taxes they're paying. They're getting a great deal.
So Kat, if you can go back to the beginning. And then at the bottom, so you're actually showing like, so the second column is where you'd start here, where Kat is underlining.
Right.
You'd show the tax and mill rate and
Right.
start with column this from 110 down, not the debt to budget. That's something different. You'd show that column, then the next column.
Right, you got
and
it.
then go down,
You got it,
down
Kathy.
again,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you'd show the next year's out until you get to 140, just like that.
That's right. You want them to see that minus number.
And then do you want to show the increase due to the high school project as a proportion of that, like how we've shown it here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
This is, I mean, if I was buying a car and I saw how cheap this is coming, and after 6 years it's all gone or whatever, or 3 years. I mean, I see these numbers all the time. I've never seen such good numbers for bonding, the amount of money you're asking, and the absolute increase per household on the average valuation of a home. This is to me, I know I sound kind of flippant, but I don't. These are great numbers. And
I have a question for you, Ira.
Yeah.
Do you think in communications, it's better to show, I mean, we do for our budgeting purposes, to show people the assessed value, based on the assessed value, or on the market value of the house?
I think you put a note in there saying These are assessed value. This is how we do our mill rate and everything based on assessed. A house that's assessed at $230,000 at this current market is worth whatever that amount you just mentioned.
Okay.
Now you can go and then look at the highs and the lows and look at the sales. And if you want to do that, but I think having a mean number, people can kind of figure that out.
Okay.
So if they're below that assessment amount, if someone's in a condo, they know their valuation isn't going to be like this. If someone's in a $2 million home, they know they're going to pay. Anyone's going to be above a house that's worth more than $750,000. This basically, yeah, they're concerned about their taxes, but they know a house that's worth a lot of money, they're going to be paying more in property tax. They can afford it. I think it's your average one and their mean amount here, but I bet if you went around and look at the real estate sales, you'll probably get an idea. I assume that's where you're coming up with this mean value.
Yeah.
And we've used it all the time for other referendums. We did it, just did it in Mansfield. We did it in Wyndham. We did it all, once you show them these numbers, the numbers don't lie. And even though you're forecasting, of course, you have to caveat it a little bit and saying, this is the best we can forecast right now. But, we're usually pretty accurate within, you could say, this is 98% accurate or whatever percentage you want to say. And what this does, it minimizes the debate about the cost per household versus the total number. Because what scared you the last time when they saw a big number over $100 million, that's all they saw. When they see these numbers, it's like, it's digestible. It's something they can relate to. Numbers only mean something on these things when a household can relate to it. So it doesn't get into, well, that's a lot of money. But actually what you're showing, it's not a lot of money per household.
Any other thoughts around this, Meg?
Ira, is it effective from your perspective to actually, like, I think maybe we need to describe the category. I don't know. I'm just thinking for our own personal things, but maybe describe each of the lines maybe a little differently. I don't know, but is a graphical representation?
Oh yeah. This
Okay.
is, I mean, I'll show you how to do graphically how to do this.
Okay.
And then you have some notes with it, and you have to have caveats.
Correct. Yes.
They're not, but you could say pretty accurately within a small error margin. It's like we just did your survey. There's an error margin in it.
Right.
And the more you get, the more you can evaluate, the more you average it out, the more it's digestible, Meg. No, I wouldn't use a spreadsheet. I would put this into a graphic format.
Okay.
You have a picture of a house and a family. There's ways graphically that people can identify with it. I don't think you're bamboozling your people. You're just using these numbers based upon what the numbers are.
So Ira, it's Kathy.
Yeah.
So what we've given you, this bottom part of it, you can take that and work with this subcommittee and put a chart, do whatever you want to communicate it. But do you think you have enough information from us on the town side for the financial end of things to do what you need to do with the group to communicate it?
Yeah, I think if you subscribe to what I'm saying about how this can be then used, these numbers for residents who are going to vote or plan to vote, this is what they need. There's nothing wrong with saying this project's 110, the state's going to give us the amount of money, but actually in reality, this is how it's going to cost each household. So the big number doesn't scare them. Like saying, what's that going to do? Is that $700 more a month I got to pay? People just jump to conclusions. So this number, whatever you decide to go at, you deal with it right up front. Unfortunately, when I've seen a lot of these projects, they're afraid to bring the numbers and they wait too late. And so you want to have the discussion about the money sooner than later. Because later what you want to talk about is what the building's going to do, the value of it, the support. I'm seeing it from the comments coming in. I've gotten hundreds of comments back on the survey, and it falls into these buckets. Tell me how education is going to improve in a new building. What's going to go on? Some of the practical things are going to go on. Could you think about expanding the auditorium? I'm getting back suggestions. And yes, there's a lot on there. I would say a third of the comments have to do with, what's this going to cost me? I don't want to pay any more in taxes, You'll see all that stuff, but you get it anyway to do it. And I go back to what I'm talking on a subcommittee the other day with Meg and the crew, is that, you want to have a control of the agenda. You want to present it in a way that it's very transparent and it's open, and you're dealing with all the details that go into it. So when a voter goes in the booth there, they are comfortable what their decision is going to be. And if it's done right, for the most part, these referendums get passed.
So Ira, as we get closer to a referendum, sorry, this is Mark. As we get closer to a selected referendum date and timing and scheduling of communications, you feel that this should go out in whatever next communication goes out.
In the next newsletter, this should go out if the budgets are, if the town council approves to go to referendum in June, this should go out right on the next newsletter.
Michael, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, so just a quick question, and it's my apologies for joining us late, so it's probably already something you've covered. And it looks like it might just be slightly above the part of the screen that we're looking at here. The numbers that no, stop right there. I think, does this analysis include all other CapEx things that Joe's been sharing with us that sort of lay within the next 10-year horizon or something?
Yes, this includes our capital plan, including the prior report and all of the K through 8 facility improvements.
And so a question maybe to Ira, is that important to convey? I mean, I don't mean the detail of it, but to convey in whatever publication we're sending out that we're not only able to accommodate the capital for this new high school, but also keep up with the required capital requirements of other school projects and other town projects, those kinds of things? Or is that something that's going to remain silent on?
Michael, I think you'd want to put all that into your town newsletter. I think this newsletter is focused specifically what we're laying out right there. What's the impact per household of putting this building together? And I'm sure, Kathy, that you would, that's normally these numbers would go out anyway. They got to be approved. And, it doesn't mean you ignore it and you're saying, overall, this is what it is. It goes back again. What's the impact of this high school going to be? And if of course, we're showing the total numbers down there, currently what their taxes are going to be anyway. In terms of when you get into other spending, other capital projects and education town, those are town functions, more general to overall budgets and overall tax implications. I mean, you can mention it in here.
I think you are, if I understand what you're showing at the bottom though there, Ira.
Kat, can you move it down?
That you're actually looking at the overall net impact. Is that right, Kathy? This isn't just the impact of the high school, the bottom line there, is it?
If you go through, so on this one I'm looking at, the overall taxes are going to increase 3.77. The impact on the school increase was $98 of the $267.
Oh, understood. Okay, so the number that sits 2 above the yellow line is the dollar increase for the entire net budget, net of capital dropping off or expenses picking up or whatever happens with grand list.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. I have to tell you that's a pretty nice set of numbers that exist above, the yellow line as well. And I think that for those that are wanting to hold the line financially, I can't see that you could say that you haven't done that.
And then Ira too, I think when your messaging, and again, when people take a quick look at this, I think the numbers seem so low that people may think that this is per year. It's not like per month or, anything like that. You're talking $267 over a course of the year. That's what your increase is.
That's
so,
right.
If you mind dividing that by 12, you're really, and that's at the high end. That's at the high end. So, I think that the messaging around this is there's a lot of good things to be able to communicate out.
Yeah, if you divide 12 into 268, let's see here. And I'll even give you a better example. It's $22. Can you go for a family of 4 to McDonald's and have a full meal for $22 a month.
No.
That's
I don't
right.
think- yeah.
And we use that example when you do presentations. How many of you go out 4 times a month to McDonald's? You'll be spending 4 times the amount that we're asking you to put up a new high school. That's how you talk. I mean, it's not talking down to people. It's explaining how few dollars you're actually asking them compared to a McDonald's meal for a family of 4. I know it sounds silly. It's counterintuitive. I've used it a lot, or whatever, family of 4 going out for just.
I say you take it even a step further. Say, if you're going to McDonald's 4 times a month, you know, think of all the money you're saving that you're going to spend on healthcare in the future.
Well, if this was a healthcare project, and they say, yeah, go and use that.
I was going to say, we're in Farmington where a pizza at Naples could cost you more than one.
Yes.
We love our Naples pizza, so
Yeah.
I'm not even kidding. That's probably where more people eat than McDonald's.
Yeah, I too think like somebody's going to say, well, 267. So that's just regular. That's like not including the high school or not including other capital projects. It's very small. Do you believe that it's, and again, Ira, you say, just keep it simple. On some level, I feel some people are going to need an explanation as to why is it not such a huge impact? Is it
Well, you need copy for that, Michael. You have to explain. I think this goes, Kathy, I wouldn't go into debt service in detail because then it'll just go into weeds, saying we're able to do this at this time, and some of it's serendipitous, some is by planning. So it looks like you do both of this, that a lot of debt's going off in the next few years. We're able to then funnel this in. Because of that, therefore, you're getting this minimal increase in taxes due to the way we've been managing debt. And this gets to sell the way the town is being managed. Not many towns do this. They just keep adding to debt. I'm living in Glastonbury, and we have a bigger debt load than you can imagine here, but it's just because they put up so many building projects here and they spend so much money on it, but it's the nature of the community, what it is. I think the thing I'm concerned about a little bit more in your community, after I saw that the census, and I will make this clear to you, that you have barely 61% of the households have their own house. That means 39% are renting, condos. That's a high number for a community like that. I know you got a lot of commercial real estate that's very taxable there. The issue is on the survey results, and I'll just give this thing because I talked to Kathy about this, 17% of your community is over the age of 64 or 65. The survey that came back, people are retired, which I assume are over 65, was 48%. So this gets into balancing. The lowest returns are from parents. So these numbers, no matter what you do with the senior population, and the average return, 50% of them have lived in a community over 20 years. So these people have a history going back about saying, gee, I got that house for $150,000. Isn't it great? It's worth $350,000. But they're not going to think of it in those terms because they've seen their taxes go up and they probably had the mortgage paid off 20 years ago. And so I'm just giving you a heads up that as low as these numbers are, the people who are going to support it have to be the ones who support that. Now, in the survey, there's a lot of support for this project. But given the response back we got, which doesn't surprise me when we do these surveys, I'm able to come back, and when I report this to the town council, I'll make it clear. It's not negative. It just needs this kind of clarification.
And Kathy, Blonsky, Kat, either one, are we able to kind of couple some, not us, but from a town council perspective, that the whole tax relief effort that's going on at the town council level?
Yeah, I think that's, again, another part of our messaging, that there's a committee going on right now that's looking at the elderly tax relief and the ordinance, and to see if there's some movement we can make there too. So I think that's all part of our messaging too, which goes right to what Ira is saying, is that I don't think it's a surprise to any of us that our
Yeah.
community is at, a lot of it is at that age. And that's one of the reasons I think why we talked about doing the elderly tax relief and looking at the ordinance at the same time as we're doing this.
Now, the other thing I could tell you, we got well over 1,100 surveys back, which is unheard of. It's over 10%. I've done this for 35 years. I've never seen a 10% response rate. We're lucky once we got a 5%. And all I can tell you is also, it's not negative. Of the total amount who wrote comments, only 70 of the 100, over 1,100 responses were negative or concerned about taxes. And so, you know, even though it's a high issue, I don't think all your senior population are against this project.
You might not know this, and this is like out of left field a little bit, but does your response have any indication towards what we would expect to see at the ballots? Like as far as percentages, do those things equate to each other at all or no? Or is there no way for us to know that?
What I'm going to do is I'll give you a snap because I'm still working on this and because we just got all the survey stuff back. I have sections called costs, taxes, and negative comments. And because the comments, that means people took extra effort. So we're going to have the anecdotal and we're going to have the data. And so we're analyzing it right now, but I'll give you at least a snapshot. And so we got a lot of comments back. It was around 250, which is not bad, a little above 250. And so there were actually, let's see, 70 comments that not all had to do with taxes. It was just like, they didn't believe in the project, whatever. There was concern about COVID security, ADA safety. There was also very specific questions, which I think will be the guideline. Once we answer these questions, some have been answered already about the disruption to the students in a new building. You know, what about, you know, enrollment projections? What about accreditation? Very specific things. And there's some that say, gee, why don't you do an indoor swimming pool? So you're going to get these kinds of like questions. And then the other ones were just general comments and recommendations. These are people who said, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And then the positive comments made up a good portion of it too, that, you know, I live in this town. And there were people in here who said, I'm retired, my kids went through school, I'm glad you're doing this. So that's kind of how it breaks down into these buckets. And when I read all this stuff, there's nothing here that cannot be presented. That can't be in a very positive way, Meg.
So what I'm asking though is like, since you're telling me whatever the number was, 65% of our responses were from, or whatever that number was above a certain age.
Yeah,
whatever you said that number was.
48% they were retired or they lived in the town above 20 years. We used to put, what is your age? They'll never fill that out. So correct. The only way I can do then I go back to the statistics. What's your population of people over 65? It's 17%. Who comes out on referendums? 40% of voters are over the age of 65. So you have to look at the reality and the total numbers. And that's how then you design a plan based upon what group needs to be motivated or understand the outcome. That gets into the, you know, the whole idea of how you market it.
And based on those responses, it sounds like you're saying we need the parents.
Oh yeah.
Based on what we're seeing to date is where the motivation needs to occur. Beyond us even, I think, you know, the PAC can help. We have other resources there. But.
Yeah, the response of parents, unfortunately, is disappointing on this survey.
Yeah.
That there's ones that get back even percentage wise. It was like below 10%. I was at least expecting 20-25%. So I find that odd given their home, they got this. And that they had over 3 weeks, or even including the ones we just got back. So these are comments. Let me go through everything. It's not negative. It's just showing a stronger outreach program, Meg. That's what we need here.
Yep. Yeah. Beth, do you have a question? I saw your hand up for a second.
Well, I don't think I got a newsletter. Otherwise, I would have sent in a survey. I'm sure that was just a glitch or something that happened internally in my household with mail distribution. Stuff that's piling up.
Yeah, Beth, that's pretty standard. And it probably did. We checked the post office. They said 99.8% were delivered.
Yeah, I mean, you would expect that. But you know, I'll entertain the possibility that it could have been something here. I wonder if, I know we're all home, but maybe it's just an excuse, but our lives are kind of topsy-turvy. I don't know. I've had 2 kids on quarantines and home, in school, out of school. It's a tricky time, but it's hindsight. But I wonder if we could have worked a little bit more with the PTOs and some of our networks, those of us who are parents, to increase that response rate. But I didn't even think of doing that until now. So once I hear the numbers.
I'll just give you a quick snapshot here. What's good for you is that 50% are aware of the committee's work, the building committee's work, which is pretty good. And of that amount, 55% think this is very, almost everyone thinks it's very important, only 4% it's not important. They're aware of the statement of needs, which surprised me, 62%. Have you been to the website? And that's a lower number, 38%, but that's, Devin and I have been talking about it. We have to just get more people to the website now that it's ready. And out of that, what you consider high priority, current facilities limitations. So this is good news for you. It's 61% believe that they need new facilities. Enhancing curriculum, another 57%. I always take 1 and 2 to high priorities here. They believe the new building will improve to the tune of 61%, the improvement in learning. Improving the school non-classroom facilities. There was okay, it was 44. If you add the 3rd level, it's fine. Security and safety came in at 66. I'm not surprised at that number. And flexibility, adaptable space was all over the place. In other words, being able to use the facility for other things. And that cost and tax implications were the highest, 74%.
Okay, so you're saying that was the highest response, was cost and tax?
In terms of 1 and 2, when I look at because they have 5 options, high priority,
Okay.
low priority. I use the top 2. I'll go to 3 sometimes when it's all over the place. But I'm not surprised at that number. So 587 of the 1,100 plus comments were about tax implication. And then there were others that had to do, those are the comments I filled out. Now, what's interesting here, let me give you about the information, because this is what we're talking about over here. How are you currently getting information about the high school project? 32% said from the town newsletter. 22% said from the school district newsletter, and word of mouth was 3rd. Not surprised. That's where sometimes it does it. Social media was pretty low. So that's telling me parents and young people they're not going there. Now, when I asked them how would they want to get information, town meetings were pretty low. They weren't interested in that. School district newsletter, pretty high, almost 80%. Social media, 16%. And building committee website, that's gotten improved. That was over 50%. And town website was almost 70%. The highest number though was the town newsletter. The town newsletter by far was the biggest impact. Now, I'm not surprised given the demographics of the response. So I assume the school newsletter goes to every household. We find an answer on that one yet? Meg?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Do you know, Beth?
I'm chair of communications. I am going to say I'm 85% sure. It's just a quarterly, if that, 3 or 4 times a year. So seasonally. And that does go to the whole community.
I say, Beth, it does, given the amount of parents who responded, a number is very high. So that means every household's getting it. So the school newsletter and the town newsletter have had the biggest impact on the responses from these surveys.
So in general, the written communication is the most effective, is what we're getting at. What they get in their mailbox.
The teachers are staffed very low, which is, I'm surprised on that. Newspaper was across the board. The Current had the biggest impact. And the least they want to hear from, which came in third in the first go around, they don't want to hear word of mouth anymore. So they're getting information from word of mouth, but they don't want to get it that way anymore, which is pretty standard. And the others are all comments. And then 60% have lived in Farmington over, 58% more than 20 years. And the next number up to 20 years were 20%. So 78%, I would say, are baby boomers, older population, maybe Gen X, older Gen X. So it's a very older population that responded to this.
So Ira, we'll most likely go over this in detail in the communication subcommittee and then identify how we're going to, you know, tackle next steps and what the communication subcommittee's
Right.
direction should be moving forward. I think, you know, Beth, to your point about the PTOs, I know early on we were able to include some PTO leadership in some of the presentations that we were making. And, you know, certainly how do we strategize to get them re-engaged?
That's a good point.
Yeah,
They were even attending in-person communications subcommittee meetings. So maybe just
this will be
reaching out to new leadership. I think with the new school year, we're in a new school year compared to, right? So there could be some new leadership, extend the invitation. Yeah, just.
the reason I'm going through this right now, because this has effect how we're going to present the finances. I wasn't going to do this, but it's showing where we have to do some emphasis on both areas. That no matter what we put in front of the people, which I still believe, you know, per household cost, it's still the primary thing, but we got two different audiences to deal with. One is your aging population who's paying a lot of attention to this, and then engaging parents and younger families. So that's going to have why I think we need to turn how we present the finances of this and the costs. You know, that, you know, you want both groups to be satisfied, but they're going to be satisfied in different ways we're presenting the information.
So is it two separate
No, it's
things,
not.
or is just one? We can structure this in a way that's going to meet both of those needs.
Yeah, for parents, it's a great investment. You know, I mean, the cost, what they're paying on their taxes, they have 2 kids in school. That's how you get them motivated and saying, you got the best deal in town, folks. You got great schools. We're going to have a better school. And look at the cost you're paying for this in your taxes. If you had to send your kids to private school, you're talking $45,000. That's how you get to them. With the older population, you're just keeping up with inflation, basically, and that the cost per increase is so tiny that you're doing. So you're presenting the information to 2 groups in 2 different ways, the same information. Because they see it differently, Meg.
Yep. No, that's just what I'm trying to figure out. It's like, what is the actual, like, what is the outcome here? Is it to, like, because if we've got one newsletter, right, that's going to go out, what are we presenting in that newsletter from a financial perspective?
Well, it's probably the 2 things I just mentioned. It's really minimal cost per household.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you're in town and concerned about stuff, we're just staying within cost of living world. And if you're a family, you're saying, this is a great deal for your property taxes if you have an average of 2 kids in school, which seems to be the average from the response.
So it's a combination, Ira, of, I'm pointing at the screen, which isn't helpful, but a graphical representation of those,
Right.
These, you know, rows that we've been looking at.
Yeah. And
as well as some context and narrative around that, that's going to be specific to kind of the 2 major audiences that we have to address.
Yeah, I would take the next 2 newsletters, which we've had, and we can be, you know, we can take an advocacy position.
Yeah, right now, yeah.
Yeah, right now.
Absolutely.
So getting all the advocacy information out also creates a script for everybody to talk to.
Correct.
All the groups saying, here's your talking points. Here's what's going on. Here's what the costs are. Here's what that I think the thing we need to do, we're working on now. What's the new building going to do better that the old building isn't doing? And that's the 3rd component. And that can talk to both groups. This building is a community building. It's also a school. You know, if you're a grandparent, you're going to be able to see your kids here. If you want to come to sports events or you want other things than adult ed and stuff like that. I mean, you can then talk to the community that this has also a purpose for the community. and then they can understand value. You don't want to get into commodity arguments here about
Right.
cost.
Yep.
Those are no win. And if anyone comes up and starts debating all this stuff, you're saying, hey, this is what it costs. What do you want me to do?
Do you think, so we want to plan to put some of this in the next newsletter. Should we have you, Ira, try to help us put something together and then have this group come back and take a
Yes.
look at it? So we're good with how we're communicating that?
Yeah, I'm going to finish the survey so I can present it,
Yep.
the results.
Yep.
I mean, it's pretty much what I'm going to say to the town council, but it's going to be a little more detail because I got to submit a written report. So we're going to have raw data. I'll make that available, obviously, the CAT and the committee and the building committee, subcommittee, Meg. So you can read if you want to read all the raw data. Believe me, after 5 minutes, you're not going to want to read all the raw data. We put it all together into a readable format. But if someone wants to see what a specific person said and their demographics and cross-tabbing it, we do that too. And then, we do it and say, here's what it is. There's general support for the project based on this newsletter. We just, you got to be sensitive to the aging, your older population, that they see the value of this, and that the parents and people who are using the schools just, need to get and support it.
Okay,
Okay.
and is the suggestion to just really quickly, so since we heard the benefit of both the town, well, we got three. We've got a town newsletter, we got a district newsletter, and then we have a building committee newsletter.
And the
Are-
website, your website, Meg, excuse me, is going to be your
Of
your
course.
newspaper. Yeah.
Yeah, where we would publish whatever we have here, I
Right.
think, right up front. But are we using all three of those vehicles for this information since they are important? Or like, as to your original point, this level of information only goes in the building committee?
I think how I've been
Newsletter.
thinking about it, I think we talked about this in the subcommittee bill. There's three, each of these newsletters serves a different function. The town newsletter is going to talk about the overall budget and the impact. And saying, here's what we're doing, here's the projects going on, devote a page into it. And saying, here's the very practical information, which what a town newsletter would do. The school newsletter needs to talk about the educational side of this. Why the Board of Ed recommended it and what's it going to have, which we already have that information. The newsletter we're sending out from the building committee kind of merges all this stuff.
Okay.
And says, here's the results, here's what we want you to do. We're going to be out there communicating. We're going to have Zoom meetings. We're going to do everything we can that you, when you go in and when it's posted as a referendum, you will have all the information necessary to make an informed decision, which we hope is yes.
Okay.
And
So
so
we're writing similar things in the town
you're
and
focusing on
district.
different things in each newsletter, but presenting the same facts.
Okay. And
It's-
really
it's-
our job within those other newsletters is ultimately to get people to go to our website for.
That's
additional
right.
information.
You have to drive them to your
Got it.
website. And
All right.
that's what's the action? Keep up the website, come
Yep.
here for updates. We'll be having our meetings. Please participate. You have questions. I think you'll go a long way by being very transparent here, which is what you probably ran into a little before. It's, you're completely open. And we want to get the information out early. And so
Yep.
it settles the troops out.
When's our
So-
next one scheduled for the newsletter? March?
It's going to be 2 weeks after. We're going to work on it right away once the town
Right.
council decides what to do. And then we already have an outline what to do, Meg.
Okay.
But I got to present, the survey results and
Yep.
ask the subcommittee what they suggest they want me to do with it. I will
Okay.
recommend, but it's, we got to make it available. It's going to be posted on the website, all that kind of stuff. It'll be summary reports. And then all the raw data, you can post it as an archive.
Yep. Yeah, I'm just trying to get timing down for,
Yeah, we
For
have it
us.
designed to go out the second week in March.
perfect.
And so I don't know, Kat, about when the school newsletter and the town one goes out, but we should probably know the scheduling of those two.
Yeah, the town one will go out in April, mid-April, around before the annual town meeting, which is April 19th, I believe. So early to mid-April will be the town one, the next town one, because we have one hitting mailboxes this week.
And how often does the school one go out, Meg? Do you know? Is it
That's-
quarterly?
Beth, is it quarterly?
I don't know.
Beth would
I
know.
should find out. I have to probably talk to Kathleen.
So my understanding is that it's at least 3 times a year. It could be quarterly. I'm just not sure about the summer one. I think there might be one that's midsummer that we, start preparing in
I
the
mean, if you
spring.
can, Meg or Beth or Kat, find out when their next newsletter is going out. So we get the content and again, drive them to the website.
Well,
Yeah.
there
Wait,
is
hold
one that's in the works. And it put on a slight delay, but it's ready to go. So we might have to do a special one just to capture
Yeah,
the timing.
If one's going out in April, we're saying in March. And it depends when they're posting the referendum. Kat, what's the plan? Let's assume, is there a date that you've come up with the recommending to the town council yet?
Yes, it's in the town council agenda that went out yesterday. So it's looking like early June would be the referendum. That's what council is going to consider.
Okay, so you have April, what you're saying, April, mid-April is the town newsletter?
Yes.
Okay.
Michael, you
So
want
they
to ask your
post-
question in the middle of this? Like, just because he's had his hand up, I want to make sure he gets it.
Oh, I'm
He
sorry.
gets it. Go ahead, Michael.
So, not specific to each of these newsletters, but wondering what we feel. I mean, it sounds as though from what we'll communicate in our newsletter, it'll be short and simple. It's graphic. It's not a lot of numbers. Am I correct?
Oh, yeah, I recommend we get as visual as we can because we'll have more visuals and we can talk about more of the value of the building.
So my next question is a follow-up as we're distinguishing that there are different kinds of newsletters. Do we feel, I don't know if Kathy's still on or Kat's on, do we feel compelled that we need to be sharing a level of detail similar to what we had shown to the public when we first did this? In other words,
As in like the bond schedule?
correct.
I don't believe we feel compelled to do that. I think this is more of the forecast we want to give out.
Yeah, that's helpful. And I'm glad you clarified that because I think we're right in being on point to a very succinct message. But if it's somewhere in point of work that the town council decides that it would be valuable to share a greater level of detail, I think it begins to challenge and muddy the waters. And so I just want to at least sort of check the temperature on, are we all comfortable that we're all going to sing from the same Bible, or are we going to have different versions of the Bible that provide a lot more detail that someone can mismanage or pull out numbers that they dislike?
So I think this is what we want. We want to all be on the same page. And what we've presented today is what council's going to see next week. And I think that's what we kind of want to all rally around and unite around, because these numbers look great. So I think that's the message is
Thank you.
we come together and share that on the same page.
Very helpful. And this is a tiny question, but I feel like I must suffer from amnesia. Is there anything in this 100 and whatever the bond number that we've got, is there anything in it that attends to the question of what we do with the 1928 building? And how much?
This is based on our capital forecast and 110 for the net municipal range for the project. So the 1928 building, because we don't have an answer for that yet, is still out there.
It does include, though, the demolition of it.
Correct, Meg. Thank you.
So
That's what I wanted to ask.
Correct.
And I know this is maybe a small thing, but I'd rather that we try to make certain it doesn't become a distraction. And Ira, since I feel like I probably have the same internal postmaster general that lives in my house, that lives in Beth's house, because I too personally never saw it, but that doesn't mean that it didn't make it into the door and that the internal postmaster general, diverted it. Was there a question at all about the 1928 building?
No.
Very little.
All right.
I think there's only two about what are you doing with it.
Yeah, I think that those, to me, you know, I bring up both those areas because I think they're potential diversions into spaces that we don't need to go. One is more detail about interest rates on bonds, and the other is what's going on with 1928. So as long as we can keep those managed as a sideline non-issue, that will make me very happy.
And Michael, just for your information, the town council is going to be talking about 1928 next week.
Okay.
Essentially, we're taking it off of the building committee's plate because there's no more educational use in that building from our perspective. So the town council on their agenda has an action item to set up a subcommittee to say, okay, the demo's included in the budget, but if we want to keep it, it's going to be a separate question. What does that look like? So they're going to explore that. And we have numbers from the estimate about a 9.8 million renovation and then a mothball number, but really just having the council dig a little bit deeper and see what that separate question would look like.
And if for some reason there was a separate desire to pursue its preservation beyond what we've slated in our numbers for demolition, and that was acceptable to follow that other plan, then we would take the money that was involved in demolition out of our net bond needs, correct?
Right, because that would change the scope of what we had proposed in our base budget.
So if anything, if there's a goal in preservation of that building, then the total bond needs for this high school building project would go down, presumably.
The demolition costs aren't tremendous in the 1928 building costs. I don't have the dollar handoff, but yes.
Was it a couple 100,000 or something?
Yeah, 300,000, I think it was. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Michael, there's, of all the questions that came in, there's only two, and only one was specific. You saved the old building, and that was the only one. So
Okay.
it's not even an issue on the survey.
Well, not even a feedback issue is what you're saying.
No, it's just one person volunteered. It said, save the original building. And so don't raise something when there's no interest in it at this point.
Right.
It's kind of, you know, we use these surveys as guidelines. It's saying what to talk about, what not to talk about. And sometimes what happens with committees, they end up talking about things that were not all interest to the people who are responding to these surveys.
Yeah.
So the whole idea is using a survey to build a language and a script, what people want to hear. And so we talked about the finance stuff. So based on what I got, what you guys showed me is perfect. You know, you're showing how minimal costs. So that's going to satisfy at least good half of the people concerned about their taxes. Now, the other half are concerned about very positive comments on here, like it's about time. Even my kids went here. It's really great to keep the community, a great community. And then you have people have recommendations. They're always all over the place. Like, don't make a castle out of it. There's just very basic things. And then what you have on there is like just very specific questions. I tend to go to the questions where people ask very specifically that I think they fall into things. Then if this is kind of what people are thinking, let's answer those questions. And don't bring up stuff that, it's like, don't stir a hornet's nest here. It doesn't, it's like Kat said, dealing with the building, the old building is a down the road issue.
So in terms of our financial communication, I think maybe what we'll do is have, because we want to shoot for what we were saying, a March or, second week of March newsletter, have a meeting in the next couple weeks with the ability after Ira reports the survey results, but to start looking at what our communication is for the tax impact or the cost of the project.
Yeah, Kat, there's one other financial thing I want you to think about. Assuming in the worst case scenario, and we've done this in other communities, they maintain the current structure and use it going forward. It's other than the educational components. How expensive is that going to be versus having more of an energy efficient building?
Right.
Is there any way to look at the total maintenance cost about maintaining old buildings? It worked for us very well in Mansfield when they had 3 little tiny buildings. When they added up 20 years maintenance costs, it was equivalent within 20% of building a new building. I don't know, I don't know if you've analyzed that or any financial information about that.
I know we've asked, I think this is a hard one to nail down, this cost of doing nothing, as it's often referred to, and it's super hard to get there. Maybe we might be able to give some general estimates around it. I don't know. We can try again. I know we've tried, and it's hard to kind of
No,
to
it's
really
not
nail
a,
it down.
yeah, Meg, it's not a major feature. It's just eventually the roof's got to be done. It's compliance issues. You're going to have things that are tangible and intangible. I'm not saying to emphasize it, but it's just a little thing to do on it. First, when you have a brand new building, obviously the maintenance is going to be very low, other than just, fuel and heat and, you can go 5-10 years out. Yeah, you got to maintain the building, but eventually floors wear out in old buildings, the windows have to be replaced. And I know you've done some of that.
Yeah.
But it's, I know you're keeping still one section of the building, the newest component. So it's, any of that stuff helps out. I'm not saying, like, we say with Michael, you don't want to emphasize it, but if someone comes back and say, well, tell me, why we can't keep this old building. Well, the maintenance is going to just increase.
Yeah, that's something we
If
need
it's
to
$1 million a year, it's
Yeah.
still going to increase.
Right.
I think I remember Tim Harris had a figure for like the annual maintenance cost, but I can't remember what it was.
Yeah,
But
even comparing
I remember that.
Yeah, it's even if we don't go to whole number, the amount you're saving with the new building as it's operating. So when it's like operating costs versus the building costs, it's probably what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I think we all walked away from last time and before the pause wanting that and wanting to use that figure or that concept of description for that maintenance cost for the old building versus
So
new,
does
so.
anybody else have flashbacks of conversations building where there was some sort of calculation of formula around that for number of people and how that transfers over? Doesn't that sound familiar? Like, it becomes very complex very quickly, I think, right, Chris? Like, it's, I mean, and I think we can simplify it.
Yeah, I think we need
just,
to simplify it.
because it just, like, to get it accurate,
Yeah.
it
It's
gets
very
into,
complicated, yes.
yeah. Yeah,
Well,
so-
we could probably get an accurate answer and then figure out a way to boil it down to layman's terms to explain it.
Okay.
The other thing I got were the enrollment figures, which are actually going up. Very few towns have their enrollments going up. And so that's always a good thing to have, that, is the current building maxed out the way they're using it for teaching versus the new building, which can accommodate if we have more growth coming on, So you're talking about a building that's probably going to be used for 40 to 50 years.
Yeah.
And, the other thing is, I think we need to also put in here too, Meg and Kat and Beth, assuming the referendum gets, wins, that it's going to be maybe up to 4 years till this building's up and running. Is
Right.
that,
I think
Chris,
people
is
are
that,
realistic.
Chris, around
I
3 to
think
4
that's
years,
the
3 to 4 years until the building, or 3 years if they're really aggressive?
Yeah, basic timeline I think is good for people to understand because it's,
All right, so part of that to think about here, this goes back to demographics. So 3 or 4 years, a lot of the kids are in there right now are going to be out, and that might be the end of it. So what parents do you want to get at? Pre-K. Pre-K for 5th grade.
Right.
well, our pre-K program has expanded tremendously in the past 5 years. We have them right in-house within districts. So that's good.
You got a natural customer there that's going to get a brand new car. I mean.
Ira, did I hear you say that the expectation is we use this next building for 40 to 50 years?
Yeah, it's probably.
I thought it was a guarantee we get it for 100 like the old one. No, we can't
At
do this
least.
for 100 years or something?
Well,
At a minimum.
1928, come on.
I mean, when I 1928, what we'll do, we'll put it on Social Security. And it's it's often 100-year-old. Listen, you should go to Bristol, where the average age of a building there is over 110 years old. They love the old building, and what became the problem in Bristol? They couldn't recruit teachers. They weren't going to go work in these old buildings. It's a recruiting. You look at Madison, the ones who put up new high schools, much easier recruiting. all new facilities and technology. And so these are all little things to think about that, down the road that, these young teachers are coming in, they want to see a building that applies the way they live their lives.
Okay, so I think,
Okay.
Ira, I think we've got a good, how does everybody feel about the actual financial data we have? I think we've got, as Kat said earlier, what we need. Now it's just a matter of structuring that in a way that makes sense, Ira. So that's where I have, and once we get the survey straightened out and we kind of move through our meeting next week, I think, because we all have some work to do around that. That next course of action is really trying to put that piece of those newsletters together so that we can do a review on that financial piece.
Right.
Perfect. So I think we're good, right, Meg? Do we
I think
need,
so. Anybody have anything else or any other? I think we're in good shape, which is nice. Anybody? It's nice to have numbers.
Good number.
Yeah,
Good.
it's nice to have good numbers. So
Yes.
that's a great thing.
Pinching myself.
Now, one more question. Sorry, all these little details sound nuisance stuff. Does the budget include also getting new desks, new equipment, everything into the new building?
Yes,
Or is
Yeah,
that
yes.
coming out of a separate operating cost?
it's included
There is
in the
money
budget.
built into it.
Okay, we need to state what that is. Talk about the technology. That's why I bring it up. Talk about the technology, the new equipment coming in, the new desks that you don't have now. That's what I'm looking for. Value statements. That this budget also includes. Do we have to go buy furniture? What about paper towel? All that stuff. And that of that percentage, we're able to put in these devices, better Wi-Fi. So there were a couple of Wi-Fi people asked in the survey. What about the technology? STEM stuff.
Right. Yeah,
So,
no,
what-
all of that is included. And then also included in the board's capital budget is furniture replacement programs throughout the district. So that's also included in the overall impact. So everything's in there.
I saw from the architects, they had down what's going on, but I'm thinking I want to get a little more specific here.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's just that's what hopefully, Ira, we can help you kind of pare all that down. What I mean?
This
Make the most
is
impactful
why you get
decisions.
stupid questions saying, when the kids have to bring my own chairs in, I mean, is it all going to become fully equipped,
All right, I
If
think we
we're
are.
still in COVID, maybe.
Exactly. Wipe it down. All right, so I think we're good for right now, everybody, since it is Friday at 4:00. I think we all
Yes.
are in good shape. So I appreciate the conversation today. I think this is super helpful. We're in a good place. If nobody has anything else, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Meg, you just, excuse me, do you have a minute or two? I want to go through what you sent me, or unless you want me to just mail it back to you, email back.
Oh, no, I can go with it. Well, I'll just call you on your cell phone when we're done.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, a second. Is there a second? Is that you, Beth?
I'm
No,
not sure
I don't think it is.
motioning.
Me. I
I'm
have a
liaison
second. I'm seconding. It's me seconding.
after I voted on something.
Michael, are you in agreement that we can adjourn?
Election for debate.
I didn't open it up for discussion.
Discussion.
I'm solidly going to throw my vote in there with you.
Okay. Excellent. So we will adjourn at 4:17.
Thank you, everyone.
Great.
Enjoy-
Thank you,
Hey,
guys.
Happy Valentine's to everybody.
Oh, thank you. You too.
Yes, thank
You
you.
too, everybody.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
the weekend.
Have a great weekend.
All right, you too.
All right,
Bye.
Ira.
Thank
I'll
you
call
all.
you right
Thank
back.
you. Thank you.
All right.